Dear Mr. Potter, you have been accepted to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Soon, you and your schoolmates will join us here, and your education in the magical arts shall begin.
Under the category of children's fantasy literature, sales of Harry Potter books have received phenomenal acceptance worldwide, breaking all records in children's literature. With over 100 million books sold in 200 countries, Harry Potter has been translated into more than 40 languages. A massive global marketing campaign, partnered by Warner Brothers, Mattel, and Coca-Cola, guarantees that the Harry Potter image will be kept before the public for years to come.
The magic of Harry Potter has captivated the hearts and minds of readers worldwide. This morning, through the magic of television, we transport you to Edinburgh, Scotland, the home of his creator. So many people went to the website with suggested questions, so I'm just going to read some of those to you. This is interesting, Joe, because we did get a few letters along these lines. I'm an elementary teacher, and I want to know what you would say to all of those parents who do not want their children reading Harry Potter. I'm a huge fan of all the books, and I'm planning on reading Half-Blood Prince to my 4th grade class.
I'd say what I've always said. I think they're very moral books. I truly believe that.
The Harry Potter story begins on Halloween night, with the murder of Harry's parents by the evil Lord Voldemort. Through the sacrificial goddess magic of his mother's love, baby Harry is saved, and his blood is given magical powers. Unable to kill Harry, in revenge, Voldemort sears a death curse of a lightning bolt on Harry's forehead. In the real world, thousands of young fans demonstrate their allegiance to Harry by taking the mark of the lightning bolt on their own foreheads.
There are people who are uncomfortable with the fact that I explore morality to an extent. In other words, the children do challenge accepted authority, they do break rules. I think those are healthy things. I'm never going to agree with someone who feels that you should shut up and do what you're told because I'm older than you. I just don't believe that that is a good basis for discipline or education. I really don't.
I have no nostalgia whatsoever for childhood. I mean, I wouldn't go back if you paid me, ever. So you have that, but you forget, or well, I don't forget, but adults surprise me by appearing to forget how powerless you feel as a child, how despairing and just enormous pressures on you as a child.
Now, you brought some books.
Yeah.
And I have not seen these yet, so...
This is a...
Fortune Telling by Carl.
Yeah, I found this in the market, and it's just, look at the cover of it. I just had to have it.
And one of the classes Harry takes in book 3.
Yeah, he starts learning divination, so...
telling about the future.
Foretelling the future. I know a lot about foretelling the future without, I have to say, believing in it, which sometimes disappoints people.
1 year ago, he learned the truth. You're a wizard, Harry.
You have been told that a certain dark wizard is at large once again.
Supporters say Harry Potter is harmless fantasy and, like librarian Carolyn Ford, praised the books for getting kids to read.
There would be very few children that would have taken a 200-page book with no pictures in it and even attempted it. And so that's making a big difference.
But Harry Potter and his creator, author J.K. Rowling, aren't without critics. Some parents don't consider Harry Potter harmless at all. The books and the movie are full of occult imagery, and some parents worry that Harry Potter legitimizes witchcraft and opens a door to the occult for impressionable youngsters. The book's U.S. publisher is the highly respected Scholastic Books, which encourages teachers to read the books out loud to their students. Parent Elizabeth Mounts objects because she finds the books dark and disturbing.
Our child came home, it was being read in his class, and the concern we had with these books was the violent tones in here. There's evil, there's death, there's lack of respect for human life, and there's the occult.
The Potter books have been translated into 47 languages and have sold more than 100 million copies. Kids are flocking to the Potter movie in droves. But the question persists, is Harry Potter harmless fantasy, or does it encourage children to participate in witchcraft?
Well, first of all, let's see what Warner Brothers says about the film. Warner Brothers says that it's an accurate portrayal of witchcraft. So here we have witches across the nation endorsing Harry Potter, saying that more than any other time that Harry Potter has initiated such response to witchcraft that witches now have schools of witchcraft on the internet where children can come, be graduated into, get certificates of graduation to become witches. Of course, the books have been promoted by Scholastic Inc., who have been the providers of curriculum for 80 years in public schools. So here, where religion, where Christianity has been taken out of the schools, or all religion indeed, here we have a wizard, Harry Potter, a witch, who goes to school with 350 other students to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, which has been repackaged as a reading incentive program, promoted by Scholastic Inc., the publishers, in our schools. 32 million children a year are being reached by witchcraft repackaged, and J.K. Rowling herself, who is the author, says that she took more than a third of the research and the content of these so-called fantasy books from occult research. So she has drawn from history, she has drawn from mythology, she admits that she has drawn from the religions of Celtic, Druidic, Satanic, Wiccan, pagan roots, and written them into her fiction books for children.
Things. She says, we all have magic inside us. We all have magic inside us. And it's interesting, when she's asked if this magic was similar to the magic used by witches and wizards in her books, she said, I think we do. Now, it's interesting, when asked in an interview with stories from the web, where do you get your ideas from? Meaning like your characters and so forth. Isn't it interesting? Listen to what she said. She said, I wish I knew. Sometimes they just come. And according to stories on the web, they have it put this way, I wish I knew, sometimes they just come in parentheses like magic. That's interesting. Rowling admits that sometimes it'll take her, a week to sometimes work something out, but she admits that often, especially initially with the whole Harry Potter idea, it all flooded into her consciousness. It was basically given to her, if you look at what she's saying. In fact, it's interesting. There's like a stream of consciousness. Check out what she says, quote, Harry as a character. Okay, now she's going from Manchester to London in a train when she gets all this revelation comes to her. Harry Potter and so forth. Listen to what she says, quote, Harry as a character came fully formed, as did the idea of the sidekicks. The characters Ron and Hermione, who is the brains of the threesome, she said. She goes, it started with Harry, then all these characters and situations came flooding into my head. Okay? So Harry came fully formed, introduced himself to her, and then all of a sudden all these other characters came to her, just flooding into her head on the train. Isn't that interesting? Now listen to this. Harry Potter introduced himself to Rowling in such a way that she states, quote, I didn't have to stop and think very hard about my hero. Rowling claims that she was taking this train trip in 1990, and in an interview she stated, quote, where the idea for Harry Potter actually came from, I really couldn't tell you. I was traveling on a train between Manchester and London. and it just popped into my head. I spent 4 hours thinking about what Hogwarts would be like. The most interesting train journey I've ever taken. By the time I got off at King's Cross, many of the characters in the books had already been invented. Now, she also tuned into the stream of consciousness where the stuff was, as she said, kind of fully formed, flooding into her, and she just began, when she stopped, to write all of this stuff down and so forth. And it's interesting how she writes. She says, I see, quote, I see it as vividly as I can. So she's got this, she says, very visual imagination. She'll see this stuff. And then she'll just try to describe it in a literary format. I think it's interesting because Satan works that way very often. In fact, in Luke chapter 4, if you go to Luke chapter 4, you read that Jesus was taken up to a great mountain, whereby Satan showed him the kingdoms of the world in a moment's time. So he's looking at the kingdoms of the world. He was given a vision in a moment's time. He wasn't taken all over the planet. He was shown the kingdoms of the world in a moment's time, and Satan said to bow down and worship me, and I'll give you all these. And Jesus basically told him to take a hike. He said, it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God and serve him only. Get behind me, Satan. Now, isn't it interesting, that Satan does have that power to give people visions and so forth. And she basically sees things, and then she writes of it. Well, who's giving her these visions of Harry Potter and sorcery and all this? It's not God. It's not the Holy Spirit. What kind of spirits are promoting this kind of stuff, according to the Bible? Seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. When you go to the Harry Potter book series and you look at the different classes that Harry Potter and the other characters take, different classes of witchcraft and divination and so forth, it's interesting because one instructor at Hogwarts says to Harry and the other students, quote, in a divination class, he says to him, quote, we shall start by practicing relaxing the conscious mind and external eyes, the external eyes, and the conscious mind relaxing it, so as to clear the inner eye, and the superconscious. Perhaps if we are lucky, some of you will see before the end of the class. What does it mean, see by the end of the class? He's talking about closing your physical eyes, opening up to this spiritual or inner eye, where there's a stream of consciousness. This is what is called the superconscious that will come through. And at the end of class, he says, quote, some of you will see before the end of class, perhaps, right? And then guess what? Some of the students receive the gift of sight, capital S, sight. Because now they can see, they have this, they're attuned into the occult world. Okay, now in witchcraft, think about it. In witchcraft, when you're told, in the occult, in the New Age movement, and so forth, when you're told to, relax your physical state of being and open up to the inner eye, according to the scripture, according to the truth, you're opening yourself up to principalities and powers. If somebody gets involved in different forms of the occult, and they, turn their mind off, and they open themselves up to this inner eye, this third eye, this mind's eye, and they allow streams of revelation to come into them, we understand that as Christians it's to be demonic. Okay, they're opening themselves up to the demonic world. Well, isn't it interesting that she describes how she received the Harry Potter series with similar terminology? In fact, she says this, quote, I have a very visual imagination. I see it. Then I try to describe what is in my mind's eye. She says, quote, the character of Harry just strolled into my mind. She says a little bit further down, I really did feel he was someone who walked up and introduced himself in my mind's eye.
Witchcraft is being given to children in a children's format, and children are seeing other children practicing it and say it's all right. And especially if the parents are saying, well, it's okay to read about other children being involved in this religion, then children say, well, if they can be involved in it, so can I.